Hello guys, welcome back, lovely to see you.
Hi guys.
So today, Dan, where are we?
We are not in the
Not
loft.
in church.
Basically, we're both kind of really busy at the moment, and so
Yeah.
we couldn't actually get to the loft. So we're
in the
in
middle.
South Ken by Royal Albert Hall
Look at
over
that.
there. So Joe's just come from the Royal College of Music, which is
Yeah.
just over there, which you can't see, but it is there.
I was playing and just great.
So even though we didn't have much time, we really wanted to do this
Yeah.
video because
This is a super
we're
exciting one, isn't it?
pant-twattingly
Oh my God.
excited.
Yeah.
So I guess it's about 10 days ago, 2 weeks now, Areej le Dore released their new 4 new fragrances, and
Wow.
I've never been so excited about.
This is a house we love, isn't it? Really?
We keep saying, oh, we're really excited, but this really is a special house. I mean, I'm lucky enough to own a fragrance from each of the first 3 generations: Ottoman
Yeah.
Empire, Envena Russo, and Russian Oud. And it's been amazing to kind of learn about these fragrances, but for me especially this time around it's been particularly exciting because I've been really following Russian Adam, the nose
Yeah.
behind Areej le Dore, on Instagram, and I keep sending you these
yes,
pictures
yes.
of he's going to going around the world, going to rose farms.
Amazing.
He's got this big hum of ambergris. He's been using this big real musk pod, deer musk pod.
The real thing.
Yeah, the
real
real
stuff.
thing, and,
Yeah.
and other ingredients when he's been saying, can you tell what it is? Can you guess what it
Yeah,
is?
he doesn't do things by halves at all, does he?
And it's just
Absolutely amazing.
lots of the other fragrances you smell, which are beautifully blended with really artistic noses behind them. They've got their oils from Givaudan or whoever else. Really, really, really high quality stuff. But for me, what Russian Adam's doing is just next level. You can't really compare it.
It's like stripping back perfume and going back to the very origins of making perfume, isn't it? Without the big
He's traveling
apparatus.
the world to physically collect the very finest ingredient. So let's stop banging on about them and smell
a
them.
whole box of these things, yeah.
So they come in this lovely little presentation box. So it's quite sunny. I think we can just about see this lovely little presentation box with these 4 samples like this. I've had these for about 10 days or something, and I've been getting really excited. So what do you want to try first?
All of them at once in my mouth.
So we've got 4 hands between us.
We can do it.
I think we should go on 4 hands. So let's start with the Baikal.
I've never smelled any of these,
Baikal
I should
Gris.
point out.
So
This
if
is
you
very
start with
exciting.
this
Okay.
on your screen. So this is based around
Baikal Gris. I need to roll up the sleeve, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Get a bit of flesh exposed. This is based on the Baikal Lake, which is a huge lake in Russia. It's the largest freshwater lake in the world. He provides these little notes lists and things to go. So this is, when I first read about this is the one which excited me the most, actually, I think, because it's based around ambergris and sandalwood. Give it a good. Do you want me? Shall I do the pumping on you? This
pump away. Oh, hello. There we go.
I mean, I get straight away. You get this really rich, creamy musk. I found this one quite unexpected, actually.
I was not expecting that at all.
I found it quite different, and especially reading what people's comments and reading his description. So he talks a lot about the surroundings of this Baikal lake with green forest, and It's such
absolutely stunning.
People have said, oh, this is the kind of most accessible and the easiest wearing of the fragrance of the 4 releases. But I find it quite unlike anything I've smelled before. People said it's very green, and I do get a slight pine quality to the opening.
Yeah.
But straight away, I mean...
But big buttery iris as well.
Yeah, this real... And I think there's some violet leaf as well. But there's this... I think you're right to say buttery. I think butteriness and creaminess and rich enveloping is what I really get.
Not a million miles away from Koh-i-Nor as well. What I imagine like a vintage bottle of that might be like.
Yeah, I kind of see where you're
the leather
coming from.
iris.
I think I found also, again, people said there was a kind of freshness and lightness to this. I found this very dense. Just make sure you don't walk into the thing.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, that opening, you can tell it's sort of weighty.
Yeah.
And it's gonna sink down, isn't it? Like a heavy gas.
There's a little bit of pine and a little bit of greenness, but for me, straight away, there's a thickness and a richness.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think he puts ambergris as a top note.
You should always put it in the top, I
Which
think.
is, lots of these note pyramids are really kind of, they're on their head.
I'm getting something quite bready as well.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeasty, bready something.
When I wore this, I tested this twice, and in a way, I found it quite difficult to pick out discernible notes as you would for many other fragrances. I found this more, it just kind of sat around me like an aura.
Yeah.
This kind of creamy richness, and I felt that the ambergris became a little bit more obvious as it kind of developed a little bit more salty.
It's like a tsunami rather than a wave, so you get the wave just goes over the top, but this is the whole thing, and you're getting the pyramid sort of hitting you all at the same time.
I mean,
in a non-chaotic way.
Having tried a lot of other Areej le Dore fragrances, this I found this one, I was quite surprised. It didn't really smell like the others. I mean, there was familiarity in that it's the extraordinary quality you expect.
Oh, straight away you can tell the quality.
But there's certainly, I mean, there's no oud, there's no real florals to discern at all, I don't think.
No.
I mean, there is a...
But there are florals in there, I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he lists... he doesn't really list any. I mean, you've got the only thing is this iris leaf, and
it's a really good iris.
Yeah. Violet leaf. Sorry, I think there's a kind of buttery irisness
I get a
to it.
lot of iris.
Yeah,
but maybe it's just the association I have with.
I wonder if it's the
creaminess.
I wonder if it's the creaminess of the sandalwood is what you're getting.
It could be, couldn't it? Rather than that orris butter which people use, I don't know.
Yeah. But also that the sandalwood, because I think the sandalwood note is so big and so rich. When I was in Mumbai,
really
I went to a Jainian temple in which they use sandalwood a lot, and you see them. There's a great big block of it, and you see them rubbing it and using it, making it into a paste used in ceremonies, put on their foreheads. And there's this smell as you walk in that's not like walking into a church where there's incense. It's a subtle, more all-encompassing but smooth, creamy, woody smell of real sandalwood, which you encounter so
It envelops
rarely.
everything inside it, doesn't it?
And this is what I get with this. Sorry, there's like a lorry reversing over there, which is going to don't distract. But
that is really good. I mean,
and when I wore it,
toasty, bready, buttery.
Again, some people said that they felt this wasn't that potent. I felt the opposite. I found this was possibly, it's not a huge projecting fragrance, but it lasted all day. And this is one of the ones I was commented on the most. People kind of noticed it and said, "Oh, that smells really creamy. That smells nice to you."
I don't find that at all light in any way. Just because something isn't a nuclear beast like a sort of Montal, it doesn't have to be.
I think what it is, I understand that people could think of it as being kind of atmospheric in that it kind of envelops you rather than punching you. But I don't find this light. I find it really interesting.
It just makes you smell it. It makes you, forces you to make some effort and find stuff.
Yeah, in a way, I think
which is what it's all about.
I can see why people would refer to it as easy wearing. That it's nothing. There's nothing too big or punchy, but it's utterly intriguing, and I was really interested by that.
It's the opposite of easygoing, though. For me, it makes me work. Just because it doesn't immediately smell like a horse's ass, it doesn't mean that there's not something bold and revolutionary going on.
So let's go. So let's go to.
It's not called Areej.
To something. I found completely and utterly different. So this one is called Koh-i-Nor, and this was a collaboration between Russian Adam and Nikhil.
This is
the perfume guru. I think his channel is. If you haven't seen his channel before, I really urge you to go and look out his channel. Incredibly knowledgeable guy. There's a great interview about a year ago. I think he interviewed Russian.
They're selling in a cafe or something.
Yeah. But Nikhil is incredibly knowledgeable, and he also does. He's obviously a big oud lover and a real expert in attars and Eastern fragrances, as well as you'll also find lots of Tom Ford and Creed and things. So his perspective and his knowledge is very broad ranging. I really urge you to go and check out his channel. And I can't think of a better person to collaborate with Russian. So I'll let you.
Let's do this on the other hand.
There's someone digging, like chopping down a building or something over there.
We're safe though. We want you to know that we're okay.
So Central London. Here we go. Yeah. So I'm going to spray you a bit. Let's get stuck in. And then I'll talk. So Koh-i-Nor is the diamond which is at the centre of the British crown jewels. So it's the largest cut diamond in the world. I think it originated from an Indian mine, but it was appropriated by Queen Victoria.
Course, yeah.
So that means stolen.
Just borrowed
by the British Empire. So
is it bigger than the diamond I've got in my Bolex watch?
I mean, I think it's on a similar level. But I mean, you can really see. Can I just like
Jesus? I can say that now because we're not in church.
I mean, that's
absolutely incredible.
When you smell that, immediately crown jewels, cut diamonds, it feels completely different. So this is very, very, very different to Baikal Gris. This, I get a huge. Let me smell again.
How's he done that? What have you done?
It's just a massive explosion of musky florals, which are bright and shining and glimmering and radiant. And
there's a big layer. There's a big layer of antique wood chest and dust as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's wood at the back of it, but it's so sparkling and shimmering. I find on first spray. Let me spray.
And again, it's a real time travel, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's a real time travel.
This reminded me, it made me think of lots of other things, and I think it is a slight homage to kind of past sheepers and things like that. So it is interesting.
We're in the appropriate building, really, for this, aren't we?
Perfect for this kind of grandeur and splendour behind us. But it reminded me a little bit. In our last video, we mentioned Amoral Gold. Made me think of that a bit. It made me think of another perfume we've talked about recently, which is Noir.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely right. Yeah.
But
that slight vintage feel that it has in a wonderful way. It doesn't feel dated in any way at all. But
because it's so sparkling.
It transports you back. I'm in the Raj.
Yeah.
You know.
Absolutely. But it does. I think you're right. It doesn't feel dated. It feels modern and it feels bright.
Yeah.
And for me, when I tried this a few times, I found this definitely the most complex of the four fragrances. I mean, if you look at the notes list, I don't know if you can see that. I might pop it on top. It's very long. It's got a lot going on there. And what I found when I wore it after this kind of sparkling open, he doesn't list aldehydes, but I don't know if it was I got certainly the kind of effect of aldehydes. I don't know if that was just the indolic nature of so many of the florals. So after this opening, I found it quite musky as well. But eventually it became very much about white florals.
Yeah.
And as with a lot of great white floral fragrances,
going in that direction.
There was this real balance of the indolic, musky, almost slightly sour quality you get with white florals, with this rich, thick sweetness. You know, so there's ylang ylang, there's lily of the valley, but on the
quite ambery at the top as well.
Yeah, well, I think
there's a creamy ambery,
there's a creamy kind of musk. Well, I'll get to that in a minute because I found that to happen more later. But I found these white florals really took over, and just at the point when it was getting very indolic on me, what came out was the jasmine, this thick, rich, sweet, really almost like you could chew it. Kind of.
I'm getting the sweetness already. It's starting to turn in that direction, which I love.
And then I found after a couple of hours, about an hour and a half, 2 hours, I felt that this big, vibrant, bright, sparkling quality really died down. And for me, it took a real turn. And if you think if it was kind of bright and white and shimmering, it kind of went brown. So
really?
Not that the flowers started to decay, but I started to get resinous notes, ambery notes, labdanum. Certainly, there's a real kind of creamy benzoin note to it, and also patchouli. I don't know if
I'm already getting a benzoin here.
I don't know if he meant. He puts patchouli as a heart note, but I certainly started to get this this kind of benzoin note to it, which is creamy and rich and enveloping, and actually almost it was at the base. At the dry down, I found this got to the dry down quite quickly. It lasted about 12 hours on me, but after 2 hours I found it got to this dry down, and it was the dry down which made me think most of, I can't talk about classic cheapers without saying Guerlain.
No.
And I think there's a kind of tonkery base with this, with florals over tonka really makes you think of Guerlain.
It does, absolutely. Yeah.
I would also say that after this kind of explosive start, the dry down I found much softer, quite considerably softer. So when I looked at the notes list, I thought this was going to smell a bit like Ottoman Empire.
Not at all.
It's not that kind of fragrance. I think Luckyscent uses the phrase monolithic floral, in that it's just like
for this
floral. No, not for this. He described other thing, and this is not a monolithic floral, which I thought it was going to be. And that's why I also think the description of this Koh-i-Nor, this jewel, I think is also right, because you kind of get this diffraction of colour. At the beginning it's sparkling and it's whites and it's yellows and flecks of reds and blues, but by the dry down it's gone kind of darker ambers and golden and burnished and brown and warm.
I love that. I mean, the sparkling thing is definitely there, and The deer musk thing is not a smell that I readily know very well. But there is something in there, isn't there, that a slight animalic thing, but it's very.
It's not. I didn't find this that dirty. It's just.
It's
warm
not dirty animalic, yeah.
And again, but that's what made me think of those old kind of sheepras with that warmth, that sexiness. Right, we can talk. We can talk for ages about this.
God, that's good.
Right, so should we move on to? Let's move on to my hand. So this is Oud Luwak.
Oh, I'm very
so it's the most,
as well.
I guess, oud dominant fragrance of these. So and it involves an ingredient called Koh-i Luwak. He doesn't call it. He just calls it Coffee Luwak. So which is an ingredient which
in Mora as well.
Yeah, again we've encountered in this Prin fragrance Mora, which is it's known as civet coffee. So it's coffee beans which have been eaten by the civet cat, rat, or whatever it is, and then shat out. So
because he realises you need a machine and everything if you want to make the real coffee.
Yeah.
So he eats them by mistake. And stupid.
Anyway, so I'm going to try it on my skin.
Oud Luwak.
Yeah.
That's a great name as well, isn't it?
I mean, look at that fleck. I mean, that's almost completely brown. That little bit that got stuck on my hand. But
oh, hello. Fucking Nora, Jackanora.
I mean, that.
I'm going caffeine free since April.
Well, no, you're not. I mean,
not anymore. No, I mean, my God. That's incredible.
I mean, that is a really amazing opening. And I will say about this was the one that was most familiar to me on first spray.
The relationship to the others?
Well, yeah, specifically the relationship to Russian ouds.
Let's get another one.
So the oud is definitely very, very, very prominent.
I'm in love with
and
that.
I get the same feeling of enveloping, dark, musky, oudy richness that I got with Russian oud. But what you get
caramel
here,
as well.
Well, I think
caramel.
there's hints of the caramel and that kind of labdanum-y, treacly quality that you get with Russian oud. But I felt a lot of the caramel and chocolate had been replaced with coffee. And then I'm just starting to get this kind of smoky quality. If you really think of like a smoked meat or something, something which has been hanging and really been affected, absorbed, that it's not fresh acrid smoke, it's that dark, rich smoke which you might smoke tea or, I don't know, cheese or meat.
And that little tiny bit of funk that you might get if you leave a steak for 300 days.
There's definite funk. You really get that slightly fermented oud.
I mean already, just on smelling that top, I don't think I've smelt a better all-out coffee note.
I mean,
I don't think
if you think of
intoxicated maybe a different thing.
But it's so.
I mean, New Harlem and things like that don't come close.
That's not in the same ball.
That's Starbucks. This is
Whereas this is proper kind of artisanal coffee. It's so rich. It's so.
Bit peaty as well.
Yeah. Well, I think the peatiness is the smoke, and if you think of a peaty. Something like Lefroy, a peaty whiskey, you get that kind of burnt peat quality to it, which is, I think, something you get in here.
It is smoky, burny, but it doesn't come across. It doesn't come across either like in terms of smoked meats. It doesn't come across as something like patchouli by Le Labo.
No, because
for instance,
because I think that has a kind of. That has more of a bitter acrid quality. It's amazing we're talking about smoke and coffee, but I don't find this bitter.
No.
At all. It's not bitter, it's acrid. It's very warm and thick.
There's a little sourness to it, maybe.
Yeah, there's a little sourness which I think kind of goes with the funk and the kind of musk of the oud.
It's that richly brewed espresso.
Yeah, again, you've got kind of multiple types of oud. The oud and the woody aspects of this are deep and complex. And again, it's somehow manages to never be harsh, I don't think, and abrasive. The other way in which, for me, this did differ from Russian oud was performance. So, I think it's quite obvious from our reaction that the opening to that is big.
Let me smell that again.
It's big and bold and kind of quite in your face. Whereas I did feel that, whereas Russian oud, I almost find a little bit difficult to wear because the performance is so big, and even after 5-6 hours, it's huge. This did dry down. So I would say this lasted 10 hours on me.
Yeah.
So whereas Baikal Gris, I felt lasted longer, even though the CR and projection was a little bit less. This didn't last quite as long, and after about hour and a half, 2 hours, this big fierce opening really settled down into quite a slightly sexier, warmer, round coffee oud, smoky. It's always smoky rather than a big brash thing. So in that respect, it's probably a little bit more wearable than Russian oud. But if you're buying a fragrance and expecting nuclear performance. This is not quite.
No. And in fact, I think a lot of people, and myself in the past included,
absolutely beautiful.
I wanted the big nuclear powerhouses. And actually, more and more I'm thinking that's not what perfume is about. It's not about being smelt.
Sure, you can ramp it up with ISO E Super, and it would be absolutely nuclear. Anyway, right,
That's not what it's about.
Let's move on to the last one. So this is
I love that so far, even maybe the most.
Malik Al Taif. So Taif is a city, I think, in Saudi Arabia, from which the Taif rose, one of the most expensive, luxurious roses in the world, comes.
There's a lovely one by Ormond Jane, in fact.
Again, I'm going to spray this and then talk about it a bit more.
Look at the colour.
I don't know if you can see the colour on my hand, but my skin has basically completely changed.
God.
But this.
Oh, that's the roses thing I can smell.
So the IFRA regulations for the amount of rose absolute you're allowed to use are 4%. So if you think about massive rose fragrances like Portrait of a Lady, so that the maximum that has is 4% rose. It could be a bit less, I don't know, but that's the maximum. This is 40%.
And it smells like it.
This is 40% rose. So you have this Taif rose from Saudi Arabia, very, very kind of one of the most expensive roses in the world. And Russian Adam was involved in the harvesting of it, so it's harvested especially for him before dawn, when it was at its most delicate. It's got another an Indian rose in it as well, which I think, and that Indian rose
it's beautiful.
He requested it was harvested only by women because their fingers are more delicate.
Really?
To get this rose, but
to not bruise it.
There's also, I mean, it says lots of, there's a lot of oud listed in this, but you just get this absolutely
beautiful. It's like the best Turkish delight in the world ever.
It's difficult to talk about this way because I'm a rose lover and I got a lot of rose-based fragrances. And then when you smell something like this, it kind of knocks me for six a bit because it doesn't smell quite like anything else I've encountered before. Again, if you're expecting a big punchy rose, to chop you around the face, this isn't really quite that. It's more enveloping, and I found it really very, very multifaceted. So you get jamminess, you get dryness, you get freshness. The other thing I got from this was quite a lot of sharpness.
Okay.
I mean, not just. I mean, we often get greenness in rose, but I got a little bit of sharpness to this rose as well. I found it.
It has a little kick, doesn't it?
I found it absolutely intoxicating. And
there's a little bit of lingering spice just beginning to sneak in.
Well, I think that's just a little bit of saffron again, which makes you think a little bit of Turkish Delight. So this is.
I get huge Turkish Delight.
This is inspired by 1001 Arabian Nights, and you certainly kind of get that from the opening. There's lots of oud. I think there's 4 different types of oud listed at.
Oh, really?
At the beginning and at the moment, I didn't really get any oud for the first couple of hours. I mean, look at my hand. My hand's a completely different colour.
It's very beautiful. I hope he doesn't wash it.
I don't know if you can see that. But yeah, I didn't get the oud straight away. I just got rose. There's a little bit of kind of warm undertone.
Yeah. There is something glowing underneath that.
Yeah.
The slight sharpness.
Yeah, the kind of
Turkish Delight, there's something underneath.
Something is starting to kind of to warm up underneath. It wasn't till quite a lot later. I found I got this this warmth really started to come out, and it was this resinous, rich, treacly, dark. I think there's benzoin in it, and all these woods. I got a hint. I also got the musk started to reveal itself, but it wasn't like Russian oud, which is quite a big, funky, oudy musk. This is much more subtle, and it really kind of revealed itself, and kind of I felt as the rose started to the brightness or the vividness of the rose started to peter out, this warmness started to kind of hug me and envelop me. Before I got the samples, I did look at the Kafkaesque review, which is absolutely fantastic, and I urge you to look at them. But the one thing the image she put on was the from the film American Beauty. You know that scene where is it Mina Suvari?
She's in the bath.
She's naked, being enveloped by these rose petals, and that
great scene.
And that's kind of what this smells like. If you can imagine the most beautiful, luxurious silken bed strewn with the freshest rose petals, and at the beginning of the night you step into that, with your loved one. And then what? But this
not Kevin Spacey.
Not Kevin Spacey. But what? I mean, it depends what your taste is. But the rest of the night and what envelops, or what happens in that bed, is what this smells like and begins to envelop you.
It's over the whole period, isn't it? From the initial roses being there to all the other stuff that might go on later, which we won't talk about.
But let yourself imagine what it is. But it's not. If you want a big, punchy, in your face, big, heavy projecting rose oud, I wouldn't bother with this.
No.
If you want something which is just, it's so enticingly beautiful, and this one I kept smelling myself all the time.
Yeah, and I mean that really is, I think, the most beautiful rose fragrance I've ever smelled in my life.
You don't get the saffron as well, don't you? Which does suggest the exotic. But
I was just lurking behind it, this little sort of playfulness in the saffron.
Let's also,
but it's humming and purring.
So let's also mention price a bit. So we've talked about.
I need to get some of these.
Let's talk about the quality of the ingredients, which are. Apart from maybe something like Ensar Oud, I don't know anybody else is using ingredients quite like this.
No. Or going to the trouble to get them himself.
And so I expected when I bought Russian Oud, that was one of the cheaper ones. That was $250 for 50 ml.
Yeah.
Because of the advertising and because they were getting more popular and he was still using expensive ingredients, I expected the prices to go up a lot. But these Oud Luwak and Baikal Gris are both $190 for 30 ml. The other two are $220. So proportionally, they're very close to the price of Russian Oud, which I think, personally, I think is incredibly good value. I would also say that, these are very, very, very special scents. They're not everyday scents, and I think 30 ml will last you a very long time.
These are investments, aren't they? They're sort of a lifetime fragrance, the kind of thing you'd pull out once or twice a year for a super special occasion.
I think it was kind of clear from a start-off video that our expectations of these were very, very, very high. And for me, these fragrances have surprised me. Some of them have surprised me. Oud Luwak feels the most kind of familiar, but a lot of the others have surprised me in that. It's difficult to say what your impressions were, but in a way they're not quite as punchy and in your face as something like Ottoman Empire or Russian Oud, but I think the complexity and the beauty in these actually feels like it's kind of gone up a level. And so if you want a big punchy rose oud, I wouldn't suggest you try these. But if you want something which is, if you're gonna, we've said this about things before, but something to turn the lights off, drink a bottle of wine and sit in the corner and smell your rest and cry. These are those kind of fragrances.
But we smell things like this, and we sometimes, I think I was expecting for these things to hit me across the face, and then for me to discover the quality afterwards. And actually, the thing that's hit me across the face is the quality.
See, I mean, this is the Baikal Gris, which is, there's nothing punchy about it, but I find it so thick and
stunning,
and enveloping, and it's really unique.
It's so dense that it couldn't possibly have any enormous throw, because it wears you. It's like a suit. It just totally envelops.
So I'm doubly excited because I've ordered 2 of these 4 fragrances, and I've got an update from my email to say it's either going to be delivered today or tomorrow. So that's really, really exciting. So
excellent. Put my address on the thing.
Sure.
I'll look after them for you. I'll take care of them.
So I've ordered 2. Bear in mind, obviously what they smell like and what you think of them, and also, what other ones I own and things like that.
For me, I think.
Not what you would buy, what you think I've bought.
For you, I think Malik.
I think Malik, which is the last one we talked about, the rose one.
I think you couldn't be without that.
Yeah, okay.
Personally.
That is right, I ordered that.
The Luwak I think you would love, but possibly not as much.
Take out the camera, otherwise I miss.
Hello. Luwak, possibly not as much as the Baikal, which I suspect you may have got that as well, but I don't know. I'm guessing here.
Yeah, so Baikal is the other one I've ordered.
These are the 2?
Yeah. I mean, I loved all of them. I loved Koh-i-Nor, but I've got a few fragrances which are similar. Slightly, I mean, nothing's quite like that, but which are in the same ballpark, and so I thought I wouldn't wear it quite so much.
It's stunning, isn't it?
I do think it's probably the most complex of the 4. Oud Luwak I really, 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 really loved, but given how much they cost, and I don't need all 4 of them, I think that I have Russian Oud I wanted to go for that. I mean, Baikal Gris, I've never smelt something like. I don't have anything quite like it.
No, I've never. I can't think of anything that's even vaguely.
And just for the quality of the sandalwood alone, I think that's worth the money. And then, I mean, I'm a rose lover, and this Malik Al Taif beats all rose.
Well, absolutely. There are not many rose fragrances. I would say possibly none that I've smelled.
Yeah.
That are just so concentrated a rose flavour.
It's amazing. Hi guys, little clip there just because we went over our limit.
Technology.
But we're carrying on. So we're just going to wrap up by saying, do whatever you can to buy these fragrances.
Yeah.
So I think the samples have now sold out on the Areej le Dore website, but go to Luckyscent, who ship internationally. Go to Luckyscent and try these samples.
Yeah, I need to do that.
If you're a fragrance lover, you know, and you're really getting into serious fragrance, I really think that these little sample box are a great way to try it if you think I'm never going to spend $200 on our fragrance. Fair enough, but get these samples because you just get a little taste of something exceptional and very, very, very special.
And you know, having a sample set like this, even just a set like that, in fact, could be enough for some of you. If you just want to try them,
absolutely,
and you like them, think, I'll wear that again at some point. You've got them there, and you don't have to buy the bottles. Although, I have to say, if any of these are still available. For me, particularly the Taif and the Baikal, I think as well I would like to get. Yeah. Especially the Taif, actually.
But, I mean, we would never suggest a blind buy and
not
say,
with these.
Try and get the samples.
Not with anything,
but, I mean, these make us really, really happy and really excited. So, anyway.
Thanks for coming all the way to South Kent to make me.
And the sun's gone in, so we're kind of in the shade now, so I'm sorry about that. You can kind of see my face. So we're going to go, Joe's going to go and play the piano, and I'm going to go and sing. So, until next time, happy sniffing.
Bye.